and entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Creatures of Habit podcast. Today, I have a guest on the show, a friend that I've known for, it's got to be 12, 13 years, something like that. Jonathan Stein is one of the best guys in New York, if not the world. He is one of the kindest guys you've met. He also happens to be one of New York's premier top real estate brokers. And I remember when Jonathan said to me that he was going to get into real estate, and I was like, is that what you're going to do? And he was like, yeah, I'm going to be the best at real estate. And I believed him. I believed him, and he is there, which is, New York State as a whole. But I think Jonathan really focuses on predominantly New York City and also out east in Long Island. And now he's sort of spanning down the East Coast a little bit. The dude is arguably one of the top, if not the top. So it's really interesting to have him on the show because I don't know him from the real estate game and his success there. I know him from being my friend. We share a lot of things in our life that are, we've been given second chances. Both of us have been given second chances, and we've really grabbed the bull by the horns in that second chance, and has been able to show that it's never too late. It's never too late, and it is also you're never too far gone to turn the ship around. So, Jonathan, man, I'm so excited to have you, brother.
Can we end it there because we're only going down? No, that was great. Thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here with you, man. I mean, you're one of the guys for the last 12 or 13 years that I've looked to as like a compass for me, that I've looked up to, and just, in your personal life and professional life, the level of dedication that you have to your family and your friends and the people you work with is something I've always admired a lot, because there are not many people that live it as well as talk it, and you do both.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah. The Creatures of Habit podcast. You've listened to the podcast, I'm sure.
I've eaten the oatmeal. I've watched the brand grow.
You have. You've been there since day one. The podcast is specifically focused on the habits, rituals, and routines of people that inspire me and others. You do both of those things. That said, I have been dabbling in trying to connect with people that inspire me in specific ways that are not just in their morning habits, evening habits. Something that you do that I don't know, I can't point to anybody in particular that does it as well as you do. Connecting with human beings at scale, socializing. You are one of the best humans when it comes to making it a priority to have fun and laugh with friends.
It's the most important thing. It's one of my main criteria for working with someone. Can I laugh with you? Can we have a good conversation together? Can we, maybe not be friends, because the clients that I work for are more often than not very serious people that I know my place in the relationship, but we can be friendly. It doesn't have to be, so static and strict. It's nice to laugh with someone and identify on a common level.
Yeah, I mean, you're unbelievably consistent there. There's a number of areas that I've just been paying attention to to what you do, because we don't talk every day, although you and I, in the beginning of the pandemic, we were on the phone every day.
Every day. We did the Wim Hof breathing. I had my laptop up on my chest in Connecticut. You had it upstate. And we would do it, and then you would go jump in your pond in New York, and I would do mine in Connecticut because it was still March, and we would do the cold plunge. And it was something I looked forward to every day, and it was the only constant that I had in my life at that point.
It's crazy, man, that we did that every day.
It feels like 2 months ago, too.
I wish I would have sustained the Wim Hof breathing stuff. I don't do it anymore. I do a number of other things. But really what I want to talk to you today, and I want to get your morning routine, and I want to get your daily habits, because you are super successful, and not only monetarily, but just in life, you are just a genuinely happy guy. And I know that wasn't always the case, similar to me.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the the attention to detail in your consistency in connecting with people in a fun way, not necessarily all business, but like hanging out with friends pretty much daily.
So I'll tell you a story, and I can't name names. I, at a various bottom period in my life, when I was really struggling, worked at a hotel in the city. It was a really fancy hotel. I can make up a glorified term for what my job was. I was a bellhop, basically, at a hotel. They gave it another name to make me feel better about it because a friend of mine hired me for the hotel. I was basically a night doorman, bellhop, cartoon character, mascot for this hotel. And we had a very fancy guest staying in one of our penthouses for a long time. And he would have even fancier guests come and visit him for advice. He knew everyone. It was really amazing to me. And I took one of the guests up in an elevator one night, and it was just the two of us. And I was so broken at the time, and I knew I had nothing to lose because I was like, if I lose this job, whatever, I'll get another, bullshit job. And I turned around and I asked the guy, I said, may I ask your advice on something? I'll probably never get this opportunity again. And he kind of looked at me for a second and laughed and goes, yeah, you probably won't. I said, if you were me and I'm broken, like, what would your advice for me be? And he goes, it's really simple. You're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Pick winners in your life. He goes, all my close friends are winners. I can call, and he named a couple people who I knew in that industry, and he goes, I can call them, and they're in my, my brain trust. And it was so interesting to me because it was so simple, and it was the first thing that he thought of. And the whole ride back down, I thought about who my 5 people would be, and I couldn't think of any ones that I would call in a pinch that I knew would show up for me beyond a reasonable doubt. And it really made me think about the caliber of people, because I had nighttime friends like you did. I had the party friends, the good time, because we were good time guys. And it started the wheels in motion, thinking about how I can change things, how I can surround myself with people that are going to make me better. And so today, cut to the question you just asked, I make time for the people that are important to me. And my dad had this friend when I was a kid who was in the Navy, and I thought he was like a jet pilot or something, or a submarine commander. He was a painter in the Navy, and his whole job was when an aircraft carrier would go out to sea, he would start painting the ship outside because the sea air corrodes it. By the time they reached the other side, they would have to start all over again because of the elements. So that's how I run my contact list, basically. I have a huge wheel of people that are important for me to stay in touch with, and I just constantly roll it. And occasionally I'll think of someone that's not in the rotation, and I'll just reach out. Because, I mean, you know as well as anyone, life is just too short not to take that chance. It takes me 5 seconds to send a text to someone just asking, how are you? How's your day? And I mean it. I really enjoy hearing how people are doing, and it's really easy to do so. And I feel like most people, it's not they don't care, it's just you may not take the time to do that. And it's so important to do so, to keep those connections great. I know if I called you in the middle of the night and said, I need your help, you would be there in a second. I know that, and there's no doubt in that, right? And I want people to know that about me too. It's an important thing.
Wow, man. I had a really awesome guy named Chase Tuning on the podcast, and we talked about this. It's a human study. The human study is the longest lasting existing human study to date in the United States of America.
Wow.
And it started at Harvard.
As these things do,
yeah,
right?
In 1938, with 350 male Harvard grads, male Harvard sophomores, and then 350 down and dirty South Boston men of the same age. And they sent out surveys via mail, obviously, at that point, I'm sure, because it's still going on now, and it's been passed down generation to generation. There are still, I believe, a few of the existing original members of this study. What they found out through this study, though, is it's basically a happiness barometer study. The happiest people are not the ones with the most money, not the ones that have had the most accolade, not the ones with the most things. It's the ones with the best quality friendships and personal relationships.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the most friendships and relationships. It's the quality. So I guess a question that I would ask you, because I think it's important to distinguish, what does a quality friendship mean? A quality relationship mean to you?
It's a two-way street. It's something that gives as well as receives. Like I was telling a guy on my team today, one of my favorite things to do is buy presents for friends that don't need me to buy them presents, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Andy Warhol said, no one appreciates a free lunch more than your wealthiest friend, right? I like buying thoughtful thank you gifts for people that would never do it for themselves, right? And because I'm in real estate, I get the opportunity to do that. I've got 2 friends I sold an apartment to almost 2 years ago now, and I still have not bought them a closing gift because I haven't found it yet. And I bring it up to them every time I see them. I'm like, I'm going to buy you, and it is a big apartment. Like it deserves multiple closing gifts at the table. But I care about them so much, and I want it to be something meaningful. I don't want it to be a bottle of champagne. I don't want it to be, stationery or coffee mugs. I want it to be something meaningful. So for me, it's finding out how to be the best friend possible to someone that needs you. Like the way you and I are friends is different than I might be friends with someone else in my life. Just truly learning about the person, because, you ask people how they are all the time and no one really gives you the real answer because we don't really want to hear it most of the time, myself included, right? I don't always want to hear when someone's having a bad day, but if someone opens up to me in that way, I don't want them to regret it. So I feel like a very roundabout way of answering that question. I just want to be the best friend possible for someone that needs me in that moment. And it was my dream my whole life to move to New York City and meet interesting people and have cool friends. And in the past almost 20 years of being here, my definition of what a cool friend is has been redefined so many times. Brendan, one of our best friends, Brendan Follis, is a cool guy by any way that you measure that metric, right? He's a international influencer. He's a cool dude. He's handsome. Super he dresses cool. Amazingly. He's got great style. He's one of the loyalest people I know in my life. Like that guy bends over backwards for, anyone that needs him. And people might not know that about the guy because they would see him and be like, he's this figurehead, cool dude. He probably has so many people around him all the time. He can't make time for anyone. It's just not the case. Yourself very much included. You've been there for me over the years in ways that, we can get into that I might not be sitting here without you today. So that's what I think of when I see your name pop up in my phone. And I feel like you and I were playing on borrowed time and extra innings.
We are. And I think whoever's listening to the podcast knows my story of, last week's podcast I just dropped was actually an episode of me on someone else's podcast where I kind of just got deep on my story, soup to nuts. And I've actually never done that on the Creatures of Habit pod where I actually told my story. So I thought it would be more helpful if someone was interviewing me.
It's a great story.
Your story and my story are different, but very similar in the way that we're both sober. Yeah. We're both sober human beings. And it's not easy.
No. Nothing about it is. But nothing that is good is easy, is what I've come to understand.
What kind of advice can you give, and then we're going to dive into some habit stuff, but what kind of advice can you give to the listener who really wants to beef up their human connection game?
It's a great question. Just take a chance. We think that everyone cares about what we're doing so often and judges us. I go to a lot of meetings for work, and I sometimes try and remember what the person 3 people ago said when they went, and I can't recall it. I have a decent memory, but I'm so in my head all the time that I'm not really fixated on any one person. So people are not going around judging us, thinking, it's weird this person reached out. I don't have time for them. I think if you really make a genuine, heartfelt connection with someone, it's important to stay in touch. Because, think about how close we got again during the pandemic. You have such a busy life. You've got 2 kids. You've got an amazing career. You've got tons of extracurricular activities that are important to you. It's not that we don't love one another and love hanging out together. It's just we have really busy lives. So the pandemic for us let us slow it down and reconnect and establish our friendship all over again. So it's just making the time for the people that are important to you, which is tough because I have a lot of people in my life that are very important to me.
Yeah, you do.
I'm blessed.
I've been thinking about writing a little blog, making friends in your 40s. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Well, people in New York, they have, their colleges, the alumni organizations, they have their hobbies that they do. It's tough because, you and I especially aren't meeting people hanging out in bars. So it's tough to make new friends.
Lots of people really do design, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? Like if you don't have a problem with alcohol, like by all means, like go for a drink.
Yeah, right. You don't want to hang out in a church basement for the rest of your life, right?
But most people in cities like New York make their plans around outside of married with kids people, but even when kids kind of leave the house,
sure,
they make their plans around a drink. Oh, we'll go for a drink, and
it's just easy.
It's easy. It's easy. It's a place to be social. It's easy. If you're not having a drink and ending up in, like face down in a bathtub in Miami 4 days later, by all means.
And it's funny that your mind only goes to those 2 places, either like no drinks or that, right, which is how mine goes, extremes.
Yeah. Let's talk about what your morning routine looks like now. What does it look? What does it feel? What does it look like now? And I'm not expecting anything crazy.
Yeah.
I would love to understand what the morning of a successful New York City entrepreneur in real estate looks like today.
It's a great question, and it's the same thing every day. I get up between 4:30 and 5 every morning, and I make coffee, and I go and I meditate for 10 minutes. And I check my app to see how many days I've been clean and sober, which is like the gift to give myself at the beginning of every day to keep that in mind and remember that. I meditate for 10 minutes. I drink coffee. I hang out with my dogs. I get caught up on emails, read the paper. And it buys me, if I do that, about 2 hours before emails, calls, and texts start coming in. And it's important for me to have that quiet time in the morning because I am inundated with so many notifications on my phone during the day. And there's like 2 kinds of people in the world, right? There's the kind of people that we both know that have 78,000 unread emails on their Gmail, and then there's us that has no notifications. I have to zero it out every day. I can't fathom it otherwise. So for me to wake up that early, well, it is a sacrifice, and it is difficult sometimes and affects other parts of my day. I need it because I need that calm in the morning. And I know that I'm going to face likely so much chaos during the day that I need to be on my toes for. If I don't take that time for myself in the morning, I'm not prepared. It's like me putting on my armor for the day and getting ready to go out and do battle. And it gives me that serenity that I can carry so that above anything else, I can just be gentle with people. I don't write angry emails or send angry texts or yell at people on the phone. I have a very long fuse, and I like to keep it that way.
It's so interesting that you mentioned the long fuse. I also have noticed just over the years that my fuse just has consistently and steadily gotten longer and longer. If I think I've lost my wallet, which happens from time to time, I haven't actually lost my wallet in years.
No.
However, yeah. I have thought I've lost my wallet a number of times over the last 3-4 years. It's like a very calm, cool, and collected experience. It's not like, oh my, I would flip out. Probably 10 years ago even.
Yeah.
It would just be a nightmare.
It's just taking that deep breath and that pause and knowing like I'm going to be okay, and I'm okay now too. Yeah. It's everything, and that's what meditation has been for me over the years. I have just absolutely debilitating OCD about order and focus and counting everything. Like it's everything all in one. And meditation has been the only thing that's gotten rid of my tics. And just,
That's right, dude.
You remember?
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
I totally forgot that was a
Remember,
real thing.
I had such a noticeable head tic for years and years, and I saw doctors and neurologists, and no one could figure it out. And Mitchell once looked at me and said, you don't have to do that shit with your head. And I was like, yeah, I do. I've been doing it for a long time. I can't really control it all that much, and it's, I used to pretend that no one else could really notice it, and I started meditating, and it was gone in a month.
Wow, dude, that is so crazy. I remember that. I totally forgot about the tic.
It was tough when riding motorcycles. And
Man.
It was just my neck was in constant pain, and it affected my back. It triggered migraines.
Was it just nervous? Was it just this
It was
anxiety
nervous.
thing?
It was anxiety. It was just a ball of tension that just sat between my shoulders and between my ears, and I didn't think that I could live any other way. And when I started meditating, it just washes away.
Let's unpack your meditation a little bit. So what for you, 10 minutes of meditation, is it just a guided meditation that you do?
I do a guided meditation where a woman on the Calm app, where a woman is talking about me sitting on a beach watching the sunset. And it's the same one I do every day. And I'll mix
the
it
same
up.
meditation.
I've been doing it. I've been meditating now 438 days in a row. Before that, it was like 700 days. And then, I stopped doing it for a while because it worked. And whenever something works, I stop doing it, and then it starts up again. So I do it every day. Her voice is soothing. I can't say enough great things about that app because it gamifies the experience. It shows how many days I've been doing it. I have a gratitude journal that I do every day on there. That's 3 things I'm grateful for. I try and change it up every day. And it's such a calming way for me to start my day.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the name of the specific meditation? Do you know?
It's called Inner Peace. And I know there's a lot of them, but it's one that's focused on just letting go of the tension and bringing in the peace of the day and just, telling yourself, today I choose peace in my life.
Meditation is such a big part of my life as well. It's interesting that I've been doing it every day forever. I mean, there are days where I miss it. Like today, for instance, I missed my meditation because I was in a hotel. I went to bed super late last night. I also, I don't want to talk about myself, but I will say that I really don't enjoy traveling for work.
Right.
I don't like, I really, and
you like the routine, right?
I like a routine.
Yeah.
I just do. I like the routine. And it's hard for me when people want to get together in New York City, when I'm here, which is once or twice a month, it tends to be on the later side of things. I personally am in bed by 9:30 every day. I'm up at 4:35,
Yep.
sometimes 5:15, but that's my happy place. I enjoy that. I really do. And last night I went to bed at 12:30.
Because it's control. You can control that. You can control not much else about the outside world, but you can control what time you wake up in the morning and your responses to outward events. And meditation helps that.
The where I was going with meditation is, so I used Headspace for a long time.
Right.
Then I kind of got bored with Headspace. I went to Calm, used Calm for a little bit. I've been trying to find a good guided meditation for a while now. What I tend to do is I literally just do 100 breaths. When I'm like, oh God, I can't listen to another guided meditation, I close my eyes in my sauna in the morning and I do 100 nice breaths, which is typically somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes, depending on how heavy or light I'm breathing. I'm really I feel like I would imagine that a lot of people that listen to this podcast also meditate or are at least meditation curious,
Sure.
Would you say that guided meditation has definitely been your success in meditation?
It is, and meditation for me is a practice. So the more I focus on it, the more I realize I'm better at it, if that's even a thing. But sometimes I can meditate and just, man, I'm like preaching to the choir with this right now because you gave me, if I can get deep for a second, I had a crisis of faith like 3 years ago, and you said something to me that is the only thing that has ever made sense in my entire life. And, we were talking about God and a higher power and what it means to us. And you said, I remember verbatim, because I've used this and quoted you like 100 times. You said, I don't know what God is. But to me, it is the sound of the leaves rustling in the trees and watching the leaves rustle in the wind. You said, I don't know what does it. It's not me. That's as much of a God and a higher power that I'm able to comprehend. And it just clicked for me. It just made sense. Like that is enough. It doesn't have to be something grandiose. It doesn't have to be something magical or supernatural. It can be as simple as that. And that made more sense to me than anything anyone has ever said. So
yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I remember when I first got sober, I was 23. I had not grown up in a religious household at all. Religion was never something that was like my mother's Jewish, my father's half Jewish and half Catholic. It was kind of like not a thing. Like we just didn't have much religion going on in the house. And so I had never prayed in my life. I didn't know what it meant to have a higher power. I knew my grandmother was very spiritual. But I remember very clearly in this group of people that I was with, somebody had, I had sort of like tapped this guy to help me. And I said, man, I don't know what to think of this higher power stuff. I mean, I'm not against it. I got nothing. I have no judgment, but I just don't know what to do. Right. I don't know. I'm told to pray. I don't know what to say. I don't know who to. And the guy said to me, he actually, two things happened. He had a plastic container of strawberries from the supermarket or whatever, and he opened up the thing and he put a strawberry in his hand and he said, "Who made that?" And I was like, "Earth." He was like, "Yeah, but do you know who made the strawberry? Can you point to any business, person, thing that actually made the strawberry?" And I said, "No, I can't. I don't know. The Mother Earth." And he was like, "Okay." He said, "Look outside." He goes, "You see the leaves like moving in the wind," or whatever it was. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Who did that?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Neither do I. That's it, man. Like, it's okay. You don't have to know. But there's an energy and a power that is inexplainable, that if you want to use it as an ally and an asset, you can. And that's it.
Isn't it so much more exciting to live your life that way too? Mm-hmm. With some, to me, it makes every day just so much more worth it to think about it that way. When I first got sober, I was in a meeting, and I had a tough childhood like you did. And it's not that I didn't believe in anything. I just didn't want anything to do with anyone that did, because I had, bad feelings, bad associations with that, negative ones. And I heard an old timer saying at an AA meeting, he goes, "I don't know what God is to you people. For me, it's the sunrise on the Lincoln Memorial in D.C. I don't know what it is, but it's kept me sober for 46 years. And after that, it made sense to me that I could make it anything I wanted. I had lost, when I had a week clean and sober, my best friend Charlie, that I've talked to you about, and you remember when I went through that. And so I used to hit my knees every day and ask Charlie for help and say, hold my hand, help me through today, help me not pick up a drink, help me be there for other people. And it only evolved from there.
What does your evening routine look like?
That's kind of all different. That's much less structured. I do a lot of client dinners. I do dinners with friends when I can. I try and do like one friend dinner a week. It's very difficult. More often than not, I do dinners with clients every night, people on my team. I work late almost every night. I come home, I get to see Lena, and our time together is very special and important to me. And at a certain point, I have to put the phone down because it is not going to stop. So for me, one of the things I've always prided myself on is my responsiveness to text and emails and phone calls. I'm busiest at night because that's when people come home from work or go out and start looking at apartments or homes with their loved ones or friends and send it over for feedback. So I always want to be available for that as well. But, it is important to take some time to recharge the batteries a little bit. And I can't do that during the week as much. That's what Saturday morning is for me. but I love coming home and hanging with my dogs and my wife at night.
Did you get a second dog?
I did. We adopted another Great Dane.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have 2 Great Danes now in
Puppy
the city.
or?
She's like 5 months old. She was taken by the NYPD at a traffic stop. She was in a very unsavory situation. So we got her from the ASPCA, and it's been awesome.
That's
so we have
cool.
2 huge blue Great Danes.
That's
They're
amazing.
awesome. They're the best.
I would imagine that there are a number of things that you are diligent about in your work.
Yeah.
You are never not closing deals. You're a deal closer. And I don't think it's very different, real estate and sales and, out there doing and creating opportunities for success. What do you think is like one line that you can draw to some of the pinnacle pieces, components of your success as a dealer?
I think about what is inhibiting the deal from taking place, what the problem is, and I try and look at the deeper meanings of that. I mean, think about everyone that you deal with, how aggressive they are, aggressive people in general, and you think about, why are you being aggressive? Like, what is the issue? And for the most part, it's caused by fear. I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want. I'm afraid someone's going to get over on me and take advantage. I'm afraid I'm going to not look great in front of my clients. And once you can rise above that and realize that base, primal instinct for aggression is coming from, oh, this person's just afraid. So what can I do to ease your fear, to appease you? How can I make you see that we're on the same side? I want to sell you the apartment, or I want to buy it from you. You want the same thing. Like, we can figure out some common ground, and with some people you're able to do that easier than others. Some people, I have an easier time talking to a brick wall sometimes than other people in my industry. Not to disparage anyone. That's some people's style. It's not my style. I want to be a deal maker. I want to get everything I work on done because I take my time so seriously. And you and I both know how precious time is. And wasted time for me not getting a deal done, then I'm at a deficit. Then I need that time back somehow, or I need, to get compensated for that time. So I don't really ever take a hard edge on something. I try and be as malleable as possible. I try and, go with the flow. One of our core values for the team that I started is be like a palm tree, not an oak. An oak tree, when the wind blows, cracks or gets blown over and uprooted. The palm tree just goes with the flow, man. It just blows in the breeze and never breaks. Be the easiest person in the world to deal with, because it's a very small industry too, like yours. I know a lot of the people in it, and I don't ever want someone on my team to reach out to another agent and have them be like, man, that Jonathan Stein is just such an asshole to deal with. He's so hard to get a deal done with. Let's not go the extra mile on this. Like, I like being a nice guy in a business that traditionally does not have many nice guys. I want to show that you can kill them with kindness, and nice guys don't have to finish last. So that's been my embodiment getting into this business later in life.
I also want to talk about negotiating, because I think negotiating, you don't really hear people talk much about negotiating. And negotiating is really a skill, like a major, major skill. And it comes with experience. And obviously, every single deal you do is a negotiation. For me, every deal I do is not a negotiation. It's hard and fast. Like, this is what it costs,
like,
man.
I'm this and you want this, so.
Right. Like, this is not there's no negotiating happening here, right? Every single piece of real estate on the planet is up for grabs, and there's no hard and fast price for it. It's whatever someone will pay. If somebody likes it enough, like, I'll talk to I have a friend upstate who's pretty prominent broker in our region, and he's basically like, would you ever want to sell? And I'm like, oh, probably not. Maybe 5-6 years from now, if I have a big liquidation event, maybe I'll build the dream home or buy the home that's already existing. That's the dream home. But until then, I don't really think about it. And he's like, the interesting thing about your property is that for the right person, like, there's definitely a base that we can get your house sold for. But for the right person, your house could be worth anything, in a higher sort of tier, because there's no price on the property. There's, like, I know what I need to sell you a bag of oatmeal for.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so how do you approach negotiations? And if you can give any tips on negotiating?
Yeah, I mean, real estate has that X factor, which is the component that you can't really define because it's emotional. My house in Connecticut that I bought, I mean, your house upstate was my dream house. Like, I remember when you bought that, coming up for the first time and seeing it, I was like, this is everything I want. And I remember how hard that I had to work every single day to be able to buy the house that we now own and all the work we've done to it. There is no price for which I would sell that house. And I say that without a hint of any kind of, there's and there's a price for Lena. Now, So I keep in mind in negotiating, I had a similar conversation with a client last night. I've been trying to reach him for a while. We talked about doing his apartment as an off-market offering. And he goes, like, it's kind of my dream loft. It's an amazing apartment for a single guy. It's in the best neighborhood that I want to be in. I'm not sure I would ever be interested in selling. And I said to him, basically what you just said to me, what's your number that gets you excited? And he was like, well, I don't know if there is. And I gave him an example. I said, how about this? And he goes, yeah, I would sell for that. And I said, yeah, I think that's a really realistic number. And I think especially if it's offered as an off-market property, so people feel like they have advanced access to it, they're going to, feel more inclined to go up a couple notches on that.
It's funny. So you sold my apartment in Brooklyn, and we had bought the house. We had bought the apartment in late 2017. We moved in 2018. We lived there for a year and a half, and then boom, pandemic hit. And we rented it out for a year in the first year of the pandemic. And I said, all right, enough's enough. Like, we're not going to go back down there for the foreseeable future. John, can you sell this place? I just want to make my money out. And you were like, brother, I'm going to price it to where I think it's worth. And I was like, that's way too high, man. I want to sell the place.
Yeah.
And you were like, trust me. And I just didn't, not that I didn't trust you, but I just didn't, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
It was so much higher than you thought it would be.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And like, I don't know, I think the second showing, you had locked and loaded it.
We priced it conservatively and we bid the price up. So,
it was wild.
Yeah.
So if you have like a hard negotiator, if you have someone that is just like, you're in an engagement. You have a buyer and there's a seller that is obviously selling their apartment. You already know that they want money. They're not doing it for fun.
No.
They're doing it because they want money, right? You've got a buyer who wants what they have. This person has an egregious price on the property. The person that you are representing is a realistic human, and you're a realistic person, and you say, okay, well, your price is unrealistic. Here is a price that we are very comfortable, and we've done the diligence on the comps, blah, blah, blah. This person says, no. And it's not far off, but It's just like, no. How do you manage a situation like that?
I don't get listings sometimes because I'm not in the business of collecting listings. I want to sell the apartment, and I come up with real numbers. I do a quantitative analysis of the comps in the neighborhood and say, this is where it's going to sell. If you want to pad it a little bit, let's do that. But if we price it conservatively, we run the risk of getting more interest in there and potentially bidding the price up. So I ask all my sellers to do what you were able to do with me. Just trust me. This is going to work out. If it doesn't work out, you can always get rid of me and bring in someone else that'll tell you whatever you want to hear, right? I was talking to a friend of mine in Miami last week about missing out on something. And I thought it was a sure thing, and I was very honest about it. And when it came on, it was not where I thought it should be. And my buddy goes, yeah, but you get to like yourself at the end of the day, right? Because you knew you were honest. And I said, yeah, that's a great point. I have no regrets about it. So to go back on what you said earlier, I negotiate against a lot of people that want to be hard-edged, hard-ass negotiators, and they're not. They've read a book about how to do it, never split the difference.
Tell me about that. Like, I just want to learn a little bit about that.
There's no need to start a negotiation in attack mode. There's no reason to call me overtly aggressive and, try and browbeat me into understanding what your point of view is. If I have the listing and I'm selling it, chances are I've done a fair amount of research on where it trades and also advise my seller on where I think it trades. If you're going to come in and tell me you think it trades here, we're already off on the wrong foot. Especially if it's at a precipitously low number based to what we're on the market for. It's a conversation. When I'm on the buy side, I like to call and be polite and establish rapport with the other agent if I don't know them and say, we really like the apartment. What can you tell me about it? Have you had any offers? And then I like to say, where do you think this gets done? That's the most important thing in the world to me. It's a very emotional relationship. When I was selling your place, you're different because we're close friends. I want to do right by you. I don't want to have to come back to you with my tail between my legs and say, we can't sell this place. You were right. We came on too high. I am damn sure when we get to that point that we're priced correctly. So it's part of a conversation. It's part of, establishing a human relationship with someone. And there are a lot of people that don't do that, and they're extremely successful in the business. It's just not my style. I like to be able to play nicely with everyone in the sandbox. And I like for people, when they know we're going to engage in a transaction together, I like them to know that I'm a train that they see coming because they know how I'm going to operate. I'm not going to get to the 1 yard line and throw out a crazy retrade or a crazy ask. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It can be extremely straightforward. It's like traffic. If everyone drove at the speed limit and obeyed the basic laws of the road, there would be no traffic. Everyone would be driving the same direction, the same speed at the same time, and it would be perfect, right? It's like in the Big Book. I'm like the director. If everyone in my play acted like I want them to at all times, the play would go off without a hitch. But that's not the way of the world. It's not reality.
It's so, it's just so interesting for me because when I think about the negotiations that I've had to, go through, like real ones for my life, real estate, not as like selling businesses, right? It's a process. It's tough.
You've done it a few times
successfully. Done it a few times. And my last business partner was such a good negotiator. He is a master at negotiation.
Correct.
And it is really a skill set that I admire, but the truth is, I'm not the kind of person that can negotiate as shrewdly as he can. He is, and I remember it so clearly, like we were trying to get a real estate deal done for a restaurant, and we both wanted the spot, bad. Both wanted the spot. Landlord was aggressive with rent and all the asks. First month, last month, 3 months security, like all these things that they wanted. $5 million umbrella policy, all these kind of things. And so I said to him, hey man, like we both want this. Like when do we walk? And he was like, when do we walk? He's like, we walk right now. We don't play into the game. We dictate the game. They know we have restaurants in New York. They've done their diligence on us.
Yeah. It's not your first rodeo.
Yeah, we tell them how to play. Because once we start to take the bait from them, oh, you need this and you need that and this is what it's going to be and this is how it's going to go and you're going to pay this and that. You're just like, you know what? Enough. No, we're out of here, And I was like, yeah, but then, like, what if they're like on to the next? And I'm like, then they're on to the next. He's like, then they're on to the next. He's like, no emotional attachment. Negotiation is so hard. It is so hard to really do it like a shark.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that I have it in me. I really don't. Like, if my life depended on my negotiation skills, I would be out of business, most likely. In closing this thing, you know, if you had an opportunity to say from what you've learned, because I remember the first time we really met was at Soho House. Got to be 12 years ago.
Yep.
You had reached out to me. I don't know how we got connected.
It's Facebook.
Yeah,
I sent you a random message.
And you were in finance. You were doing. You know, you had bounced around a bunch of different things, but you basically were. It was like a cry for help at a certain level, right? Like, you were like, "Hey, man, I want to connect with you," and it was unclear, but we became friends. And then a few years later, it was made very clear to me.
Yeah.
And now you're sober for 9 years.
Well, I remember my brother had seen you on a podcast or a show or something on YouTube. And I remember he was like, because we were talking about sobriety, because I was struggling so much with it. And I remember my brother goes, if a cool guy like that can be sober, you can do it. And I remember I reached out to you that same day. I was, like I said, man, I was lost. I didn't have a clear roadmap to where I wanted to go, but I needed to surround myself with good people.
Doesn't matter if you're sober, if you're a millionaire, if you're able to do whatever you want in life. There's going to be days that suck. Life is like that, right? I mean, it's never a fairy tale from beginning to end. There's days that come that you just are just like, all right, well, this day is not going to be awesome. I'm going to be okay, but it's not awesome. If you had to just give advice to someone listening to the podcast in regards to what you've learned over the last 9 years of being of truly a changed human, you're a changed human.
Yeah.
You have built a life for yourself that is admirable through the eyes of any lens. What would you say?
I don't ever have an excuse to have an ungrateful day. I can have a bad day. Everyone has bad days. It's not realistic to say I'm never going to have a bad day. I'll try and get through this. Man, Teddy loved life more than anyone you and I have ever known. And when he passed away, it'll be 2 years in June. That was one of the hardest losses I've had since I've been sober. And we've had a lot of them combined collectively for guys that we've known both in and out of the program. And I think about every day how much Teddy loved life and how much he loved waking up and how much he loved meeting new people and establishing genuine connections. And I think I don't ever have an excuse to have an ungrateful day. Teddy would give anything for my worst day here. So it's something I think about a lot. You know, every day is so precious and it goes by so fast. When we bought our place in Connecticut, we've got these two gardeners that live in town and they've become really good friends of ours. And it was like my 36th birthday when I bought the house. And I was hanging out with one of them in our garden on my birthday. And he goes, "How old are you?" I said, 36. "How old are you?" He goes, 72. And I asked him, I go, "Does it go fast?" He goes, "I was where you are yesterday." He goes, "It is so fast and it only gets faster." And I try and be cognizant of how far I've come in 9 years. And I also am cognizant of what am I doing to maintain that gift in my life. You got to give it away to keep it. And it is one of my greatest joys in life to hit new milestones in sobriety. Every year I post a picture on my anniversary, and I want to be there for people when they need someone to reach out to, because I really didn't know who to reach out to. I knew you, but you and I weren't that close. And when I got sober and started meeting people whom I looked up to and shared common values with, I really realized I don't have all that many good friends. I've got a lot of people I surround myself with, but I don't have a ton of true friends. I really don't have any hobbies or anything I truly enjoy doing that I'm passionate about. I don't really know what I'm doing. I just felt like I was existing and treading water. And now I have so many hobbies that I do with people in my life, so many amazing people that I can't believe I get to be friends with them, right? Professionally successful, personally awesome. You know, it's not about the cash and prizes. You and I both have between us probably everything we've ever wanted from a material standpoint. And what does it mean to you? Nothing. That watch that I wanted, that propelled me to work crazy hours for years on end because I thought it was going to fill the hole right here. It's just a watch that sits in my drawer now, and I don't wear it most days. And I look at it and I'm like, it's a pretty gold watch. That's all it becomes. It doesn't make anything better. So it's just about establishing connections and just having great times with great people.
So what you're saying is sober, pretty good lifestyle.
It works well for me. It's a life beyond my wildest dreams, man. It truly is. Think about what we get to do right now. If you had told me 9 years ago that anyone would give a shit about what I have to say on your podcast, I would have thought you were pulling my leg. So,
I think you're a wonderful human being. You really are, man, and you've blossomed into truly a friend and just a guy that I look to for inspiration. I mean, you sort of exude this positive energy that I didn't think was real in the beginning. I was like, is this real? And then I was like, wait a second, this dude is real. This is real. A lot of people that listen to podcasts have reached out that have been struggling with alcohol and drugs. And so I just think it's so powerful to have a guy like you come on who's not only successful in sobriety, but in business, in family, in his life. Be able to come on and say, hey, it is okay on this side of the street. It's actually not just okay, it's amazing.
And I never knew how good it could get and how good it continues to get. But I didn't get sober to learn how to feel great all the time. I learned how to feel bad too, and know that this doesn't have to. I read a lot of Marcus Aurelius, and the cool thing about his book Meditations, he wrote it as a journal for himself. He never meant anyone to see what he was writing. It was a personal journal that he wrote every day to keep his air of calm about him and not get a big ego for being arguably the most powerful man on the planet at the time. And one of his meditations that I really resound with every day is, this doesn't have to be a thing. This doesn't have to upset you. That's what it is. It's so good. You've got a guy who's literally the most powerful person on the planet, who's running the largest, most well-funded army that had ever been put together. He's the head of government, the state, telling himself things like that to keep a grounded head, and it's still applicable over 2,000 years later. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. But this doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to affect you.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap up, man. I am so grateful for our friendship, dude. I really am. I appreciate you coming on.
Love you, brother.
How can the audience stay along, follow along on your journey?
I post fun real estate stuff on Instagram at jstein, and I'm not on Twitter. I don't do YouTube. This is the only time, barring further reflection on this, where I haven't felt like there's a camera right in front of me. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I've never been someone that really wanted or needed to see my name in bright flashing lights. I like to kind of be under the radar a little bit. So, but I'll always respond. I try and respond all the time, especially when someone's in need.
And if somebody wants to buy a piece of real estate,
that too. That doesn't help.
Right?
Yeah.
You're looking to sell, buy, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. I got 2 Great Danes that eat a ton of food. So
appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a good one, ladies and gents. I appreciate you listening in. And as you know, it would be greatly appreciated if you hopped on to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Give us a review. 5-star rating would be unbelievable. That is how this podcast stays afloat and continues to show up in your feed and other people's feed. It would really mean a lot if you do that. And Also, if you would share this podcast with anybody who you love, anybody who you think could potentially take something from this episode. It would mean the world to me if you shared it with friends, family, maybe even some enemies. If you're feeling like connecting, you're feeling like burying the hatchet, pass this podcast off to someone who you have been battling with or struggling with. And chances are, it could be a great way to re-break the ice. Anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you. Until the next one, y'all. Peace.